Hi, everybody. International publicist Michelle Tennant Nicholson. I am also the co-founder of Friends of East Flatrock.org. As you know, we united 13,000 rural neighbors in Henderson County to fight an asphalt plant. They've withdrawn twice, so now we're just a united group of neighbors. We've been asked to form a neighborhood watch group in East Flat Rock, which we have since June 1st. And I've been really learning a lot about opioid addiction inside our county from the police, and also about our homelessness situation. I've got Kristen Martin on the phone or on Zoom here with me from Thrive. This is a local organization. Kristen, please tell me a little bit about Thrive, because I don't know. I had never heard of Thrive before we became a neighborhood watch group. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. So we are a nonprofit located here in Henderson County, and we serve individuals that have severe and persistent mental illness in our day program. And then we have a representative payee program for individuals that receive disability income. And then we also have our homelessness program, where we move households out of homelessness and into housing. And so programs for that particular one, and I think that's the one that you're most interested in. That program serves Henderson, Polk, Rutherford, and Transylvania.
Wow.
We have a wait list as well, unfortunately, because there's just so many families that are struggling, and there's a lack of affordable housing in our region. So what we do is folks call us their vulnerability based on the household with the highest housed first every time we have an opening. So it works a little differently than like a Section 8 or something like that, where you're at the bottom of the list right away. It really depends on your situation.
Okay, so you're cutting in and out, and I just want to recreate what you just said so we're not missing it. So you have a wait list, and so families in need can sign up, and then they're not just necessarily put at the bottom, they're put on based on need.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of like a more human assessment rather than, because I mean, I think that most people would be like, oh, doesn't our government handle this? Why does a nonprofit need to come in? But as we all know, as I first learned, so we've been walking over East Flat Rock Park every day. We tried, sunset and sunrise, and some people just walk through the middle of the day. We're donating signage that has the non-emergency sheriff number. If people see something, say something. And then there's also the 211 number to be connected with resources. If you're in the park, find yourself in the park. And let me just give a little background how we got here, Kristen. So I don't know if you know, Kristen, but you probably heard of the asphalt plant fight, right? In Henderson County. Okay. Well, at the planning board meeting, one of the pro asphalt plant speakers basically said that East Flat Rock was the most crime ridden in the county, which I've since interviewed the police, and they said that's not true. That's just one person's opinion. And the person's opinion, you can check the transcript. I'm not spreading gossip. This is actually transcript that you can find on Friends of East Flat Rock's Facebook page. Roger Pace, who owns Logan's, said that he would rather the neighbors, fight crime and drug addiction and homelessness in East Flat Rock than fight the asphalt plant. So we put our money where our mouth is after the asphalt plant application was withdrawn a second time. And ironically, the property behind Roger Pace is a homeless camp. But in addition to homeless seeking refuge there, drug dealers are also seeking refuge there because they can leave the park and evade police in the middle of a bust by running into that property where the landlord's name is Roger Gagnon. Roger Pace rents from Roger Gagnon. Okay. Roger doesn't live here. He lives in Colorado. So he didn't want anybody in the back there because he has cars, and it's basically, an antique junkyard, and the homeless were living in there. But what would happen is they would then leave, and I witnessed this every single day, June 1st through today is June 28th, 2021. And what the police say, there's nothing we can do if somebody is homeless in the park, right? And when they go over to private property, which then Roger Gagnon would say, that's his private property. So then the law is kind of, the hands are tied, right? So then you also have drug dealers going back there alongside the homeless. So you've got very vulnerable population next to people who have nefarious motives. It was terrible, right? So long story short, today, June 28th, 2021, as of Friday, we called code, the neighbors complained, and coding enforcement worked with Roger Gagnon, and now the police have access to the property. That's why we called all the nonprofits in the area, and Thrive was the one that was like, wait a minute, we need to do some education about homeless and distinguishing it from other bodies
Criminal
of
activity.
Yes, thank you. So piercing in on that. So when you're at East Flat Rock Park, what are you actually looking at? Are you looking at a crime being done, or are you looking at a homeless person in need? Which we did approach. I approached a woman in the bathroom, okay, and asked her if she needed help and that kind of thing. I think what's also helpful, Kristen, is this park is very busy. They have a lot of families use it. And the truth of it is, it's very safe. Okay. That's the truth. If you do see something that is out of the ordinary, when I talked to Parks and Rec, they said all of our parks in Henderson County, you need to be on your toes, right? Because it is a public area, and there's going to be some homelessness. There's going to be some crime, and it's just across the whole county. So for all of us, when we're going to a public situation, and we might see somebody in need, what should we do? And what should we be educated about?
Sure. So I'm also the Regional Homeless Coalition lead, which basically means that aside from just Thrive services, I help coordinate all of our homelessness services. And so the best thing to do when encountering somebody that you believe to be homeless, if you're in a safe scenario, obviously, you can ask them, if they need some help or if they need a referral somewhere. And 211 or the Thrive number are great places to start,
Give
because
the
then
Thrive number right now, Kristen, so we
Sure.
all have that.
828-697-1581 or 211. Both of those will get you to what you need. So if it's something that we can assist with, then we will. And if it's something that one of our partners can assist with, we'll make that connection. That's the same thing that 211 will do. They'll either give you information right then, or they'll make a warm transfer phone call for you to the appropriate place. So those
Now,
are the.
Can we just really drill down to specifics? Because I've been in this now for the last month. So when I called 211, I was put on hold for a very long time. So I just want to give this number out one more time. So 697-1581. So that if you've called 211 and you're on hold, here's another resource. Okay. So thrive4health.org, the number 4. And then you can see here, they're on West Allen, 697-1581. The other thing that I didn't, I asked, look, she was in the bathroom. It was hot outside. It was like a sauna in there. And she didn't really want help. So I asked her 3 times. Ultimately, she asked for money. Should I have given her money? I gave her $10, but my father always told me, he was a nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital. He said, give homeless food, never give them money. Help us out with all that stuff.
Sure. So, and I think scenario to call, we can get our outreach team to go to that place to see if there is a camp nearby. And then that team has medical professionals on it, as well as behavioral health. So if somebody happens to be in crisis or has a medical need, that way all those things can be addressed by a professional at the same time.
So then I would just call. Even after hours, I could call.
Well, after hours, you might get a voicemail, but the next day we would respond.
Okay.
In that scenario, really, it's up to your individual discretion. I think that some people feel like you shouldn't judge the person. And if you have $10 and you give it to them, then you can't judge what they do with it. There are other people that are fearful that money would be used on alcohol or drugs. which case they choose, hand out food or something else. But like I said, if we don't know that a camp exists and you do know, then an outreach team can't get there without the information. And the outreach team is really the best long-term solution because they can help them, get linked up to our services so they can have housing and not be in a camp any longer. Or like I said, to assess those medical needs. So for example, during the winter, they were able to save somebody's foot that they had several black toes from frost. And because
Wow.
staff was able, they were able to provide a life-saving service.
So, we may feel like we're just walkers, getting our 10,000 steps in. And then you see, when you're seeing a homeless camp. And be honest with you, I've been here for 20 years and I never told you about that camp. I knew it was there. So I could have actually called you and told you. I'm not like tattling, I'm actually getting them help.
Yeah, I mean, we have people call all the time. And what we do is, the sheriff's department works with us as well as the local police departments and zoning. So oftentimes we'll get a call from them too if something pops up on their radar. We also, until this year, we did what's called a point in time count, which is one time per year where we try to accurately count the entire homeless population. This year, they changed it to where we can do it year round, which will make for a much more accurate number. But that's enables us to have more resources in the community so that we can have an accurate count. And that count, the reason why it's important that we know about the camps is that count increases the state and federal dollars here locally that can be used to help solve this issue. So that's a really important thing to have. If we don't know that they're there, then they're not counting towards that, in which case there's not as many resources available.
This has been so, I really want to thank Commissioner Rebecca McCall and our Sheriff Frank Stout for contacting me and saying, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and clean up, East Flat Rock. I never would have done this without their recommendation. I would have never done this without the asphalt plant fight. So in a way, we can thank Jeff Shipman for doing the application so that we could unite and then have such a powerful force in East Flat Rock. The park feels a lot different today than it did 30 days ago. We were just commenting on that last night as we were doing our 10,000 steps. Those of us who have, a house, a home, food on our table and whatnot. Tell me about the people, because this woman that I saw, she was young, and you're just like, I think that the most of us I was born and raised in the South, and my daddy said, you never take a handout, you always work for it. And that's that old American, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. What causes homelessness primarily in Henderson County and the surrounding counties?
Yeah, it's a myriad of reasons. Sometimes it's a mental health illness that makes it a difficulty to stay stable. Or to be able to pay rent on time or something of that nature. Sometimes it's substance use. Most often, though, the substance use is self-medicating when it starts, again, in relation to mental health illness. Another crisis. We have some folks that have been a huge medical issue, some that were in a coma or had cancer treatment and they lost their housing because of it. And then there are others that just don't make enough money. They might work 2 or 3 jobs, but they just don't make enough money because they aren't making living wage or certainly not housing wage. And the reason I say that differently is because of how much housing costs here. You can look up some statistics on that through the community health assessment. Thrive participates in that with the health department. And that's actually, affordable housing has been a health priority for the last several years because there is a large number of people paying over 30% of their income on housing. And then when they lose their job or, when COVID struck or any kind of thing like that, there's a lot of people that are only one paycheck away from homelessness. There's just not enough housing stock at that lower level for people to be able to find a place quickly.
Well, that's a really interesting circle that you just said, because a lot of our neighbors, especially the younger folk, the reason why they moved to East Flat Rock is because the housing is less expensive here than other areas of the county. So I was speaking to Commissioner Daniel Andrada, who said, East Flat Rock really hasn't grown out this way. I beg to differ, because I see a lot of housing that's grown up in and around exit 7 and 25, near about, a couple hundred feet from my house on Spartanburg Highway, where Orr's Family Restaurant is. And so I was speaking to Wayne Knock, who is a history teacher, and he came to this area because he's like, I'm a teacher. I make a teacher's wage. And so the only place that I could really afford is East Flat Rock. So I think to really push our commissioners to really be looking at affordable housing in Henderson County, what else should we be demanding as taxpayers, Kristen, for this?
I think understanding what affordable housing means.
Okay,
when
please.
When you say affordable housing, the average person thinks you mean a house that costs around $250,000. And when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about housing that they could rent for $500 or $600 a month. And that's a stark difference when they're bringing in private contractors to build the different neighborhoods. There's a new one that just got approved the other day. I can't remember exactly where it is, but the lowest house there is going to be $350,000. That's actually not affordable housing. It's certainly not workforce housing. And so thinking through what that word actually means is what will actually make the difference, to approve ones that, they don't have to have 400 units, and totally blow the neighbors out of the water. But if they could actually be affordable for families, then that is keep them out of homelessness. And that's a huge part of what we keep people a little bit longer, so that we make sure that they are homeless, that once we put them in housing, that they stay in housing for the long haul.
Yeah. And the way that people I describe, because I do international PR, so they always are curious where I live. They've heard of Asheville, but they've not always heard of Hendersonville. And so, part of what I say is that it's got a really large retirement community. A lot of people come here to retire. I would imagine that some of these people are aging out, and then there's probably elderly services that play into the homelessness as well. Or am I making that up? Like, what's the truth about that?
There are some elderly folks or over 65 folks on our list. However, a majority of the retirees that move in have an income enough that they move into some type of assisted living facility and don't become homeless. So many of them, are able to go to Carolina Village or Lake Point Landing or some of the more upscale. So we don't
it's money, right? It's again what your income is, right? And I can imagine. So it's usually, when I speak to local people who born and raised here and stayed here, the ability, it's just really interesting, the opinions about, ultimately we all want a good income, and we want an ability to provide a good day's work and be able to provide for our families. I think that that's fundamental for all Americans, no matter what your political affiliation. And I think that that's really what our commissioners are trying to set up too, is as far as our planning, is to make sure that we have industry growth and an opportunity for our people. Is there any, I was interested in that when I left a message for you at Thrive. It said, are you a member of the clubhouse? And then I found myself wanting to be a member of the clubhouse just because I'm a joiner. So then tell me about your clubhouse.
Yeah, so our clubhouse is our day program that serves adults with severe and persistent mental illness.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And so that we
people
help
might
them
say,
with,
I need that. Okay.
no, actually, so one in 4 people experience a mental illness every year. It might not be lifelong, but if you think about even this past year with the COVID pandemic, a lot of people have had a lot of depression and anxiety and different things around that. Grief, certainly if they lost a relative.
Yes.
And then 1 in 8 individuals have a severe and persistent mental illness, which means that it's long lasting and something that affects your daily life. So we need to take away that stigma. Our members that come there have a full range. So we have as young as 18, and our oldest member is 86. We have some folks there that have gone on to get their cum laude in nursing and are working full time, living on their own and driving. And then we have other folks that their illness has progressed to the point where, they're having to live in an assisted living facility. They come to us for social skills, and then we have everything in between. And so some of our housing folks also attend there if that is the level of their illness, so that they can, again, be successful. And some don't need to have both services. So it's definitely a needed service. And the reason why it has a different number is because all of those folks, because of their diagnosis, have access to a 24/7 crisis line. But those staff are trained and equipped for those specific members, and that line is only for that service.
I am really so thrilled to meet you and to learn about this. I want to tell you, I have a master's degree in human development. So mental health is of utmost importance to me. And then the PR campaigns are often dealing with mind, body, spirit issues. I actually contribute to Psychology Today under mental injury is not mental illness. So I actually teach the globe about what is mental injury. And by the way, if you've never heard that, you have heard of PTSD. So there are plenty of people who have been assaulted or they've experienced war and they have PTSD. They don't have a quote unquote, they might have mental injury, which is very distinct from mental illness. I myself, I put a predator in jail when I was 17 years old. He was the neighborhood pedophile. And so, at his hands, I experienced PTSD as an 8-year-old. And so I'm very, very committed lifelong for thriving in mental health and distinguishing and teaching people the differences there. And so I don't take it lightly that our paths have crossed, and I am available to you, however you need, Kristen, to really educate and help the people of Henderson County. And I mean, you guys reach the other counties as well. I'm really glad to know about you. For people who've made it to the end of this recording, what do you hope they take away, and what do you hope they do?
I hope that we can decrease the stigma that all homeless folks are involved in criminal activity. I hope that we can also decrease the stigma surrounding mental illness, that it doesn't make you less than, but in fact, you can still thrive and be involved in your community in a meaningful way. And I hope that folks will reach out for help versus thinking that there's nothing that is being done about a particular situation in their neighborhood.
That's beautiful, Kristen. Thank you so much. And again, the phone number for Thrive, if somebody is hurting, is 697-1581. And something that I learned that I didn't know is the number 211. It's been around for 20 years, evidently. And that will, in any community pretty much in America, will connect you with services, social services that will help. And as we start to really explore what the police need, this is something that all neighborhoods could really augment and help our police. What they're telling me is they can only operate inside the law. And many times what is needed are these additional nonprofit services. And please give money to our nonprofit services because they wouldn't exist without your donations. Thanks so much, Kristen.
Thank you.